I have a lineup of 56mm lenses from Fujifilm X mount, as well as the 18 to 55mm kit lens, the old one, unfortunately. I bought the combo just before they released the new kit lens. And I wanted to compare the differences between relatively budget portrait lenses versus the full-on pro lens for the system and whether it's worth it to splurge. I already made a video comparing the three 56mm lenses, but I didn't get the opportunity to photograph people. So I'm rectifying that here and also adding in the 18 to 55. 56mm on the X mount or any aps-c camera system is an 85mm full frame equivalent field of view, which makes these perfect portrait lenses, whether that's studio portraits, weddings or other live events, just casual family portraits, animals, whatever. Also, Viltrox and TTArtisan sent me their lenses, but I'm just making this video because I want to. I'm interested and hopefully you are as well. But I did buy the Fuji boys myself. So we've got the Viltrox 56mm f1.7, the TTArtisan's 56 f1.8, the Fujinon XF56 f1.2, and of course the Fujifilm XF 18 to 55 f2.8 to f4. Kit lens. I had a corporate headshot job, sounds weird. Anyway, a few weeks back in which I defaulted to using the f1.2, the Fujifilm XF 1.2, because it's objectively the best one. But I did regret the fact that I didn't take the opportunity to try out the other two, especially when I was just setting up with my friend JM, who hired me to do the job. He had a friend over, I was taking some test shots with them. I could have used the other two lenses for the sake of comparison. I didn't do that, so I set up a similar setup, kind of the same lighting scenario that I used for those corporate shots here, photographed myself, and I also invited my mom over, who agreed reluctantly to be in my test shots. And then I did some more just casual portraits of myself, just to give us a little bit more of a variety of shots. So for headshots, I think you want a relatively deep depth of field so that you get all of the person's features in focus, but I also shot a couple wide open, just to test the differences. So wide open, f4 and f5.6, those are the apertures that I chose.
These images are pretty much straight out of camera. I did some slight exposure and contrast and white balance tweaks, but no real retouching or anything. So these will give you a good indication of what the lenses look like straight out of camera.
None of these lenses is going to blow you away in terms of autofocus speed, but all three were able to nail critical focus on the eyeballs most of the time when paired with the X-T5. So I was using the X-T5 for all these photos, and I was only using AFS or AF single. I had eye detect set to auto, which means that the camera is going to select whichever eye it wants to focus on. And I was also in the single shot drive mode, so it's pretty relaxed kind of scenario here.
I was using the Fujifilm X app to take the photos of myself. In terms of the autofocus, basically just having to tap on the screen and then remain still. But there's definitely a chance that I would move either closer or further away, and it's not like continuous autofocus. So I didn't want to give like a raw number of like, this is how many photos were sharp versus not sharp, because it was obviously that limitation when it comes to autofocus.
I covered the respective fields of view in my previous video. You would think 56mm, discounting this one, they'd all be the same, but that's not quite the case. The TTArtisan is the most cropped in. It has the tightest field of view. The Viltrox is the widest. The 55mm is obviously going to be even wider than the others. And I only mention that because in this little space that I had set up, I actually had to move the TTArtisan off the tripod because I couldn't get it far enough back, still be able to stand behind it and operate the camera. So I went in handheld mode on the TTArtisans. Most of the time, that's not going to be an issue. You'll have enough space, whatever, to set up your shots. But it was just something I wanted to reiterate. Even though these are all 56mm, they don't all have the exact same field of view. Firstly, holy detail. The X-T5 sensor is no joke, and all of these lenses paired with the X-T5 are able to render more than enough detail for this application. More than enough. Too much. You will be retouching for days, smoothing out blemishes, stray hairs, flyaways. Of course, you want detail and sharpness, and I don't think any of these lenses is going to let you down in that department. Ranking them in terms of sharpness and detail from worst to best, the least sharp, I think, is the kit lens, the 18 to 55, followed by the Viltrox f1.7, then the TTArtisan's f1.8, and the sharpest by a country mile is the XF56 f1.2. I don't think you'll be doing corporate headshots wide open on the aperture, but any other type of portraiture is fair game. And I have to say the f1.2 on the XF56mm really surprised me. I thought these shots looked really freaking cool. And it's the only lens of the bunch that's going to get you a full frame equivalent depth of field of f1.8. The TTArtisans and the Viltrox are going to be in the neighborhood of f2.6 to f2.7, and the 18 to 55 kit lens at f4, which is its widest aperture, zoomed into 55 millimeters, is going to be around an f6 in terms of depth of field. Tone can go too far, but in this instance, I thought it was a really interesting look with the XF 56 millimeter at f1.2, and that's something that the other lenses just can't match. If you're trying to get started taking headshots and doing other types of portrait work for clients, I think you could easily get started with either the TTArtisans or the Viltrox and happily shoot with one of those lenses for a long time. Even the 18 to 55 kit lens, especially for studio portrait work where you have control over the lighting and you won't necessarily be limited by that f4 aperture. Again, speaking of corporate headshots in particular, you really want to have enough depth of field where you're getting all the features in focus. So, f4 to f5.6 is sort of going to be your minimum anyway. But it's when you're constrained by natural light scenarios where the kit lens is definitely going to take the biggest hit in terms of its practicality. But even it can get you started if you're on a limited budget. Deciding between the TTArtisans and the Viltrox is tough, but it can come down to maybe if you have a brand preference and you want to match them with other lenses. If you want to get other Viltrox lenses or other TTArtisans lenses, it's obviously going to give you a more cohesive look switching between those lenses. TTArtisans lenses especially tend to have a pretty distinctive flaring characteristic. And if you want to make sure that you have all your lenses look the same, that might be one way to decide between them. I think the TTArtisans is slightly sharper wide open, especially in the center of the frame. That's kind of where the Viltrox struggles the most. But when you stop down to f4 to f5.6, I think they're pretty equal in terms of sharpness. And of course, the XF 1.2 is a beast of a lens. It's big, beautiful, and the most expensive by a mile. It's the most versatile in terms of light gathering and the absolute shallowest depth of field. And it's also the sharpest by quite a bit, both wide open and when stopped down. But like I talked about before, all these lenses are sharp enough for this application, and you'll probably be finding yourself unsharpening and smoothing out blemishes more than you'll want max sharpness. Anywho, I hope you enjoyed that or found it helpful in some way. Let me know if you have any questions, and let me know which one is your favorite 56mm lens. See you later.